You and your wife can pack your things and be out of my house by the end of the day? I yelled, my voice cracking but firm. My son, Damon, looked at me like I was insane. His wife, Tiffany, let out a cruel laugh that made my skin crawl. She sauntered over to Damon, stroking his arm with a hand covered in rings bought with my money. "Don't worry, honey," she cooed, a smile pure poison. "Remember last time? A few slaps and she'll be back to paying for everything." My stomach twisted into a painful knot. Damon smiled back, a knowing, complicit look that shattered my soul. They snatched my car keys from the table and left to dine at the most expensive restaurant in the city, using my credit card, absolutely certain I'd crumble like I always did. But this time was different. As the door clicked shut, I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and dialed a number I'd kept secret for weeks. "Elias," I whispered to my brother, "it's time. Do everything we planned." I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that when they stumbled back that night, drunk and arrogant, they would regret the day they were born. 3 years ago, my husband Robert died, leaving me this house and a modest income. I thought I could finally find some peace. But 2 months after the funeral, Damon and Tiffany showed up with 2 suitcases, claiming they had apartment trouble and just needed a couple of months. Those 2 months stretched into a 2-year nightmare. Respect vanished. They stopped cleaning, started coming home at all hours, and slowly took control of my entire life. I was forced to wake up at 5 a.m. to make their breakfast, because Tiffany could untolerate noise. Then I'd clean the house in silence while they slept until noon. Damon quit looking for work 8 months ago, his days a blur of video games, while Tiffany indulged in shopping sprees with my credit cards. She'd return laden with designer bags, while I wore clothes that were 5 years old and falling apart. I had to cook 3 different dishes because nothing was ever good enough for Tiffany. I ate leftovers, standing in the kitchen, while they lounged in the living room, a space that used to be my sanctuary. Damon even sold Robert's gold watch for his online gambling. When I confronted him, he just screamed at me to mind my own business. To pay the bills, I started sewing until my arthritic hands bled. The debt piled up to $47,000, all spent by 2 parasites who called me a pathetic old woman to my face, while my own son laughed. The breaking point came 3 months ago. A credit card statement arrived with a $1,200 charge for a single dinner. When I questioned them, Tiffany didn't even look up from the sofa. She was wearing a new emerald green dress. She just waved her hand and said it was a birthday dinner she deserved. I told them I couldn't keep paying. That's when she looked at me with pure hatred. She got up, like a predator stalking its prey, and slapped me so hard I fell against the coffee table. "You're a bitter old woman," she screamed. "You were dead before we got here." I looked to Damon for help, but instead, he grabbed my arms, his fingers digging into my skin. He told me I would keep supporting them and keep my mouth shut, or next time it would be worse. They left to go celebrate, leaving me crumpled on the floor. That night, I lay in bed, listening to their cruel laughter through the wall. They were planning how to squeeze me dry until I died, so they could inherit the house. And in that moment, something inside me didn't break, it hardened. The next morning, I called my brother Elias for the first time in 5 years and poured out 2 years of pain and humiliation. He arrived 3 days later with Andrew Sterling, a lawyer specializing in elder abuse. Andrew explained that my son wasn't just a bad child. He was committing felonies. For 2 weeks, I secretly gathered evidence. I photographed the bank statements showing their luxury purchases while my own fridge was empty. Andrew gave me a hidden recording device. I recorded Tiffany forcing me to wash her hair, calling me a worthless cow. I recorded Damon demanding beer, calling me useless. My wonderful neighbor, Estelle, agreed to testify about the abuse she'd witnessed for years. The final straw was the party. Tiffany invited 20 strangers who trashed my home until 4 in the morning. When I begged them to stop, she grabbed my arm and hissed, "Shut up! This is my house now." That morning, I cleaned the house one last time. Not for them, but for me. Then, I called Elias. "I'm ready," I said. When I finally told them to get out, Tiffany kicked over my bucket of cleaning water. Damon advanced on me, his fists clenched. But just as he raised his hand to hit me, the doorbell rang. Elias burst in, followed by Andrew and 2 police officers. Tiffany tried to laugh it off, calling me a crazy old woman, but Andrew just opened his briefcase and laid out the undeniable truth. Bank statements showing $47,000 in theft, and Estelle's signed eyewitness testimony. Andrew presented them with 3 documents, an immediate eviction order, a restraining order, and a formal lawsuit for financial fraud and domestic violence. Damon started begging, playing the "I'm your only son" card. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You stopped being my son the day you raised your hand to me." The officers warned them that resisting would only make things worse. Then, Andrew played the recording of Tiffany, refusing to let me have money for my heart medication because she needed a salon visit. Desperate, Tiffany suddenly claimed she was pregnant. He produced her medical records, proving she'd just renewed her birth control. The officers gave them 25 minutes to pack, but Andrew delivered the final blow, a preemptive injunction. Everything bought with my money stayed in the house. An officer calmly removed the jewelry from Tiffany's neck and hands, holding up receipts proving every piece was paid for by me, Grace Holloway. They took Damon's Rolex, his laptop, and his camera. Tiffany screamed, realizing her life of luxury was over. In a fit of rage, she ran to the kitchen and started smashing my antique plates. That was it. The officers handcuffed her immediately for destruction of property. As they dragged her away, Damon just stood there, frozen, the consequences finally crashing down on him. He left with nothing but a small bag of old clothes, and I was left standing in a silent house that, for the first time in 2 years, finally felt safe. The silence that followed was a healing balm. My brother Elias stayed with me until I felt safe enough to sleep without nightmares. The next morning, a locksmith changed every lock, handing me the only keys to my freedom. My neighbor Estelle came over, and we cried together as we cleaned up the broken plates. Andrew kept me updated. Tiffany couldn't make bail. Damon, now homeless and sleeping in his car, violated the restraining order by calling to beg for money. I recorded the call, sent it to Andrew, and Damon's bail was denied too. I decided to press full charges. I knew if I didn't, they would just do this to someone else. The court hearing was brutal. The prosecutor presented the photos, played the recordings. The judge looked at them with utter disgust. When their lawyer tried to claim it was just a family misunderstanding, the judge cut him off, stating that financial difficulty is not a license to beat your mother. My testimony was simple. I just told the truth. 3 months later, the jury found them guilty on all counts. Tiffany was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Damon got 8, and they were ordered to pay back every single cent of the $47,000. 6 months have passed. I'm 70 years old, sitting on my porch, drinking tea and watching my roses bloom. I've reclaimed my life, my home, and my peace. I actually ran into Tiffany recently. She got an early release on appeal. She was working at a grocery store, looking pale and defeated. When she saw me, she just lowered her head in shame. She has no power over me anymore. I'm painting again, going for long walks, and living without fear. Thanks for listening to my story. If you or someone you know is in a similar situation, please remember that you are not alone and help is available. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of strength and justice.